Some tears never dry, they just hide behind tired smiles until the day a ghost from the past knocks on our door. Isabella knew by heart the rough texture of the yellowed envelope that trembled between her fingers, the smell of old paper mixed with the salty tears that blurred her vision as she read the words that shattered her future as a teacher in rural Texas. At 20, she had learned to carry alone the weight of interrupted dreams and a childhood love that had disappeared without explanation 15 years ago, leaving only the echo of a name whispered on rainy afternoons: Tyler. It was when she decided to start over in Miami, among the perfumed shelves of a bookstore in South Beach, that fate decided to play its cruelest cards. Because sometimes life prepares us for reunions that can either heal us or destroy us forever. And when those familiar blue eyes looked at her between the books, asking about symbolic psychology with a voice that still made her heart remember how to beat off rhythm, Isabella knew that some old wounds don't heal, they just wait for the right person to be touched again. The yellowed envelope trembled between Isabella's fingers as she read for the third time the words that changed her life. We regret to inform you of the permanent closure of Roosevelt Elementary School due to budget cuts. Tears blurred her vision, but couldn't erase the harsh reality that presented itself before her. At 20, Isabella Martinez had found her calling. Among the worn desks and scratched whiteboards of that school in rural Texas, her blue-gray eyes sparkled when she talked about Mark Twain to disinterested teenagers, and her fair skin blushed with emotion when reciting Maya Angelou. Her brown hair, always tied in an unpretentious bun, framed a delicate face that radiated genuine passion for knowledge. "My dear granddaughter, don't cry like that," said Grandma Rose, watching the young woman from the kitchen door where she was preparing apple pie. The 72-year-old grandmother had raised Isabella since she was 5, when her parents died in an accident on I-35. Sometimes life closes a door to open a gate. Isabella wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. The simple 3-room house in Austin seemed even more cramped now that her future had crumbled. The improvised shelves made with boards and bricks, filled with used books she had collected for years, seemed to mock her. What good was all that knowledge if she had nowhere to share it? "Grandma, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've tried all the schools in the region. There's no vacancy for a literature teacher anywhere," she murmured, letting herself fall onto the faded floral fabric sofa. Grandma Rose approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee with milk. "Remember when you were little and wrote in that diary about the meanings of the months? You always said that March was the month of soul healers." "Childhood nonsense, Grandma. It wasn't nonsense at all. You were born to heal wounds, my daughter. Maybe not in rural classrooms, but somewhere else." The elderly woman picked up a newspaper from the coffee table. "Look here. There's a job ad in Miami. A bookstore." Isabella reluctantly took the newspaper. "New chapter bookstore seeks attendant. Literature experience required. Immediate vacancy." Her heart accelerated, but soon decelerated. "Grandma, I've never left here. How am I going to manage in a big city? Child, you're 20 years old and have a heart the size of the world. If you stay here, you'll wither like a flower without sun." Grandma Rose held her granddaughter's hands. "And another thing, I'm going with you." "What?" "I've been thinking about this for a while. I have a cousin in Miami who always invited me to live there. My pension is enough for us to rent a little place." Isabella felt a mix of fear and hope. 2 weeks later, she was on the Greyhound bus, watching the Texas landscape gradually change as they approached Florida. Her stomach was churning, not knowing if it was from the trip or anxiety about the new job. The interview at New Chapter Bookstore had been surprisingly easy. The manager, Mrs. Martha, a 50-year-old woman with glasses hanging around her neck, was impressed with Isabella's knowledge of American and world literature. "Girl, you talk about Harper Lee like she was your personal friend," she had said, laughing. "The job is yours." The bookstore was located in South Beach, in a charming small building with exposed brick walls and large windows that let natural light bathe the wooden shelves. The smell of new books, mixed with the aroma of coffee from the small cafe in the back, created a welcoming atmosphere that made Isabella feel at home immediately. On her first day of work, she wore her best white blouse and a navy blue skirt that Grandma Rose had helped her choose. Her hair was loose for the first time in months, falling in natural waves over her shoulders. She wanted to make a good impression. "Isabella, today you'll learn about organizing the sections," said Mrs. Martha, handing her a name tag. "The bookstore was bought by a large publishing group 3 months ago. The new owner sometimes shows up unannounced to feel the real climate of the business, as he says, so keep everything always impeccable." The morning passed quickly between cataloguing new books and serving the first customers. Isabella was organizing the American literature section when she heard the Dr. chime ring. She didn't look up immediately, concentrated on positioning an edition of To Kill a Mockingbird on the shelf. "Excuse me," said a deep male voice with a subtly different accent. "Do you have anything about symbolic psychology or psychological astrology?" Isabella raised her eyes and the world stopped. The blue eyes that looked at her were deep blue like the winter sky, and for a moment she had the strange sensation of being observed by someone who had known her for a long time. The man must have been about 33 years old, tall, dark brown hair slightly disheveled by the wind, wearing a grey sweater over a white shirt and jeans. There was something familiar in his angular face, a contained melancholy that she couldn't identify. "Yes, we have a small section on esotericism and psychology. It's back there," she replied, pointing to the back of the store, but unable to look away from him. "Thank you," he said, but remained standing, as if he too was trying to remember something. Are you new here?" "Yes, it's my first day." Isabella felt her cheeks flush. "My name is Isabella." "Isabella," he repeated slowly, as if testing the sound of the name. "A beautiful name. I'm Tyler." And at that moment, something stirred in Isabella's memory. Tyler. It couldn't be. But those eyes. Tyler walked to the indicated section, but she noticed that he was watching her discreetly through the shelves. When he returned to the counter, 15 minutes later with a book about Jungian archetypes, Isabella couldn't resist curiosity. "Are you interested in symbolic psychology?" "Let's say I'm trying to understand some patterns in my life," he replied, passing his credit card. The name on the card made Isabella's heart stop. Tyler Cooper. No, it couldn't be the same Tyler. "What month were you born?" she asked impulsively. He looked at her, surprised. "November." "Why?" "November, the month of alchemists. Those who transform pain into strength," she murmured, without thinking. The book slipped from his hands and fell to the floor with a dull thud. When he bent down to pick it up, Isabella saw his hands trembling slightly. "How do you know that?" he asked with a hoarse voice. "I've always been interested in these things. Since childhood She stopped, because suddenly the memories came like a flood. A boy with dishevelled hair, 2 years older than her, who spent afternoons at her house in Austin because his mother worked at the city. A courthouse. They played in Grandma Rose's backyard, invented stories about the clouds in the sky, and he always asked about the meaning of birth months. "Tyler?" she whispered. "Tyler Cooper? Are you the Tyler who—" "Bella." The nickname came from his lips like a sigh, laden with 15 years of absence. She felt her legs weaken. "I can't believe it," she murmured. "You disappeared. One day you were there, and the next, my mother sent me to study in England. It was sudden, she repeated, and there was hurt in her voice. "You disappeared without saying goodbye, without a word. I thought I had done something wrong." Tyler closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, she saw deep pain in them. "Bella, we need to talk, but not here." Mrs. Martha approached at that moment. "Mr. Cooper, we didn't know you were coming today. Is everything okay? Isabella is doing very well on her first day." Isabella felt the world spin. Mr. Cooper, the new owner of the bookstore, was Tyler. The boy who had been her best friend and who had left without explanation was now her boss. Tyler quickly regained his composure. "Yes, everything is fine. Isabella seems to be an excellent employee." He looked at her once more. "I'll be back tomorrow to talk about sales progress." And he left the bookstore, leaving Isabella with her heart racing and 1,000 unanswered questions. That night at home, while Grandma Rose prepared rice pudding in the kitchen, Isabella opened her diary for the first time in months. March 15th. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. After 15 years, I met Tyler again. The boy who taught me that true friendship exists became a man who carries sadness in his eyes like a shadow. He's my boss now. Is the universe trying to tell me something, or is it just a painful coincidence? She stopped writing and looked out the window of the small apartment they had rented in Coral Gables. The lights of Miami twinkled in the distance like earthly stars. March, the month of soul healers. Maybe her grandmother was right about destinies and gates that open. But some wounds were too old to be healed, and she feared that meeting Tyler again would reopen a scar that had taken years to close. Have you ever unexpectedly reunited with someone from the past? How was that experience? Leave your like if you're enjoying the story and tell me in the comments what city you're following our Isabella from. Isabella arrived at the bookstore the next morning, 15 minutes early, with sweaty hands and a racing heart. She had slept poorly, dreaming of fragments from the past. She and Tyler building stick houses in the backyard, reading comics under the oak tree. Him teaching her to make kites with colored tissue paper. "Good morning, dear," greeted Mrs. Martha, noticing Isabella's pallor. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." If she only knew how right she was, thought Isabella, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, just a little nervous. Still getting used to it." The bookstore was particularly quiet that Tuesday morning. Only a few retirees were browsing magazines in the current event section, and a mother was choosing children's books with her little daughter. Isabella tried to concentrate on work, organizing the new releases in the window, but her eyes constantly turned to the door. Tyler appeared at 10:30, wearing a navy blue suit without a tie, his hair slightly damp, as if he had just gotten out of the shower. He greeted Mrs. Martha professionally and waved to Isabella with an almost imperceptible nod. "Mrs. Martha, I need to review some sales reports. Could you lend me your office for an hour?" "Of course, Mr. Cooper. I'll get some coffee." When they were alone in the small room at the back of the bookstore, the silence became almost tangible. Tyler sat behind Mrs. Martha's desk, but his fingers drummed nervously on the wooden surface. "Please sit," he said, indicating the chair in front. Isabella obeyed, crossing her hands in her lap to hide the tremor. Up close, she could see the small wrinkles around his eyes, marks of fatigue or worry that didn't exist when they were children. 15 years, he began, his voice low. "A long time. Time enough for you to become the owner of a bookstore, and for me to find out in the worst possible way," she replied, trying to sound stronger than she felt. Tyler ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered well from childhood. "Bella, I never wanted you to find out like this. I didn't even know you were in Miami. And since when do you care about what I find out or don't find out?" The coldness in her voice made him recoil in his chair. "You have every right to be angry." "Angry?" she repeated, and her voice rose a tone. "Tyler, you were my best friend. We spent every day together. You knew all my secrets, knew I was afraid of thunder, that I dreamed of being a teacher, that I kept colored stones in a cookie tin." Her voice failed, and then one day you just disappeared, without a letter, without a phone call, without anything. I couldn't what? Say goodbye. Explain that you were leaving. I spent weeks waiting for you to show up at my door. The tears she had held back the night before finally came. You made an 8-year-old child believe she had done something horrible for you to disappear like that. Tyler got up abruptly and went to the small window that overlooked the internal courtyard. His back was tense under his jacket. "It wasn't my choice, Bella." "Then whose was it?" He took a long time to answer. When he did, his voice was loaded with a bitterness she had never heard before. "My mother discovered some things about my father, things that completely changed our lives. We had to leave the United States suddenly." "What kind of things?" Tyler turned to her, and Isabella saw a vulnerability in his eyes that made her momentarily forget her own pain. My father wasn't who we thought he was. He had other families, other lives. When everything came to light, my mother panicked. She thought that staying in the US I would discover the truth and it would destroy me. So she took you to England, to London, boarding schools, therapists, a completely new life. She made me promise not to contact anyone from the past until I was mature enough to understand, as she said. Isabella dried her tears with the back of her hand. And when did you become mature enough? When I turned 18 and discovered it was too late. You had moved from Austin. I couldn't find you or Grandma Rose. We moved to a smaller house when Grandma retired. Same neighborhood, but different street. Silence returned to hover between them, but now it was a different silence, loaded with regret and lost possibilities. I thought about you many times, he said quietly, especially when I was alone in those cold dormitories in London. I remembered the afternoons in your grandmother's backyard, the apple fritters she made when it rained. She still makes them, Isabella murmured. She lives with me here in Miami. Grandma Rose is here? She said she wanted to live an adventure at 72 years old. Isabella smiled for the first time since entering the office. You know her. How is she? Well, a little slower, but with the same giant heart. She studied him for a moment. She asked about you a few times over the years. Always said you would come back when it was the right time. Maybe she was right. They looked at each other in silence for a long moment. Isabella could feel the old familiarity trying to overcome the years of absence, but she also felt the weight of the changes that time had brought. Tyler, I need to know, did you come back because of me? Did you know I was here? No, he answered honestly. I came back to the US 6 months ago. I inherited the publishing group when my father died last year. It's been complicated, taking over a business I never wanted. You didn't want to be a businessman. I wanted to be a writer, he said with a bitter smile. Ironic, isn't it? Now I publish other people's books. And why don't you write? Because I don't have anything to say anymore. The answer came out harsher than he intended. Sorry, I'm still adjusting to many things. Mrs. Martha knocked on the door at that moment, carrying a tray with coffee and apple pie. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you'd like some coffee. Thank you, Mrs. Martha, said Tyler, recovering his professional posture. Isabella, can we continue this conversation another day? I have a meeting in half an hour. Of course. When they left the office, the atmosphere in the bookstore seemed different, as if the air was electrically charged. Isabella tried to concentrate on work, but was hyper-aware of Tyler's presence, examining the shelves, talking to customers, browsing through sales reports. Around 2 in the afternoon, he approached the counter where she was organizing the files of ordered books. Bella? Yes? Would you like to have lunch with me tomorrow? There's a southern restaurant here in South Beach. We could talk better. She looked up at him. There was still hurt in her heart, but also a painful curiosity about who he had become. Okay. Noon. When Tyler left the bookstore, Isabella felt simultaneously relieved and anxious. That night, while helping Grandma Rose prepare jambalaya for dinner, she told her grandmother about the reunion. "Oh, my granddaughter," said the elderly woman, stirring the rice in the pot. "I always knew that boy would come back. He had a special light in his eyes when he looked at you. Grandma, we were children who connected in a special way. And now you're adults who can choose what to do with that connection. He's changed a lot. He has a sadness in him that didn't exist before. Life hurts, daughter, especially those with sensitive hearts. But sometimes healing comes exactly from the person we least expect." That night, Isabella wrote in her diary, March 16th, I discovered why Tyler disappeared. His pain is different from mine, but it's real. Maybe we both have wounds that need to be healed. Maybe this reunion isn't coincidence, but synchronicity. March, the month of soul healers. November, the month of alchemists. Could we together transform this old pain into something new? She closed the diary and looked at the night sky. Through the window. Tomorrow she would have lunch with the man the boy Tyler had become. and for the first time in years she felt that maybe, just maybe, some wounds were made to be healed by specific hands. Do you believe in destined reunions? Have you ever felt that some people come back into our lives exactly when we need them? Share your experiences in the comments and don't forget to leave a like if you're rooting for Isabella. The restaurant Mama's Kitchen was located on a charming corner of South Beach, with its rustic wooden tables and walls decorated with cast-iron pans and old photographs of the American South. The smell of garlic and oregano hung in the air, mixed with the aroma of cornbread coming out of the oven. Isabella arrived at exactly noon, wearing a sage-green dress that highlighted her blue eyes and hair tied in a low bun, with some loose strands framing her face. Her hands were sweating slightly as she looked for Tyler among the tables. He was already there, sitting at a table near the window, distractedly browsing the menu. When he saw her, he stood up like a gentleman, and she noticed he had traded his suit for a light blue shirt and jeans, looking more relaxed than the day before. "Did you find it easily?" he asked, pulling out the chair for her to sit. "Yes, thank you." Isabella settled in, trying to control her nerves. "The place is cozy. I've been coming here since I returned to the US. The food reminds me a bit of childhood." Tyler sat across from her. "Do you remember Mrs. Rosa, who cooked at the courthouse where my mother worked?" "Of course. She made that chicken and okra that was delicious." Isabella smiled involuntarily. "And she always saved an extra piece for you because she said you were too skinny." "I really was skinny," he laughed, and for a moment the smile completely transformed his face, bringing back traces of the boy she had known. A middle-aged waitress approached, notepad in hand. "Good afternoon. Have you decided?" "I'll have the shrimp and grits with collard greens," said Isabella. "For me, fried chicken with mac and cheese," Tyler ordered. "And 2 sweet teas to go with it?" Isabella nodded, remembering how he always liked drinks with distinctive flavors. When they were alone again, silence settled for a few seconds. Tyler played with the napkin between his fingers, clearly nervous. "Bella, I wanted to apologize," he began, "not just for disappearing, but for how it affected you. I never considered that an 8-year-old child would be marked by it forever," she completed without bitterness. "Tyler, I understand you had no choice. Your mother did what she thought was best. But I could have found a way to say goodbye, or to send a letter later when I grew up. I was a coward." Isabella studied him for a moment, the subtle wrinkles around his eyes, the tension in his jawline, the way his shoulders seemed to carry an invisible weight. "You don't seem like a coward now," she said softly. "You seem tired." Tyler looked at her with surprise. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You have this melancholy, like you're carrying many ghosts." The drinks arrived, interrupting the intimate moment. Tyler took a sip of the sweet tea and made a face. "Ghosts is a good definition," he murmured. "I discovered many things about my father in recent years, things that completely changed how I see my own story. Do you want to talk about it?" He hesitated, turning the glass between his hands. "My father had 3 families, Bella. 3. Us in Austin, a woman in Houston, and another in New York. Each one thought she was the only one." Isabella felt the impact of the words. "My God." "When my mother found out, it was like her world collapsed. She dragged me to England, saying it was to protect me. But now I understand she was running from her own shame, from the scandal. And you never knew, never suspected anything. To me, he was just a father who traveled a lot for work." Tyler took another sip. "I found out everything when he died, and I had to take over the business. The other families appeared at the will reading. It was devastating. The food arrived, steaming and aromatic, but neither seemed to have much appetite." "How did you deal with it?" asked Isabella, poking at her shrimp and grits with her fork. "Badly, very badly." He laughed without humor. "I spent a year immersed in work, trying to reorganize the company, deal with legal issues, divide inheritances, and in the middle of all that, trying to understand who I really am, if I'm the son of an honorable man or a compulsive liar. You are you, Tyler, regardless of what your father did. Am I Because sometimes I look in the mirror and see his eyes, and I wonder if I have this capacity to hurt the people I love. The vulnerability in his voice made something stir in Isabella's chest. She extended her hand across the table and lightly touched his fingers. The Tyler I knew would never hurt anyone on purpose, and from what I'm seeing, that hasn't changed. He looked at her hand over his, and for a moment all the tension seemed to leave his shoulders. You were always too generous with me, Bella. Or maybe you're too hard on yourself. They ate in more comfortable silence, and gradually the conversation began to flow to lighter topics. Isabella talked about her experience as a teacher, about the students who had marked her, about her love for American literature. Tyler talked about England, about the landscapes he had loved and those he had hated, about the books he had written in secret and never published. "Do you still write?" she asked when he mentioned the manuscripts kept in drawers. "Not anymore. After taking over the company, it seems like the words dried up." "That's temporary. Creativity is like a well. Sometimes it seems dry, but it's just a matter of digging deeper." "You sound like a teacher," he said with a smile. "Old habits. Do you miss it? Teaching?" "Every day, but maybe it's time to find other ways to teach, other ways to connect people with stories." When they finished eating, Tyler insisted on paying the bill. Outside the restaurant, under the warm Miami afternoon sun, they hesitated at the farewell. "Bella, I know this is complicated. You work for me, we have a history, but I'd like us to be friends again. If you want, of course." Isabella looked at him, noticing the insecurity in his voice. The powerful man who commanded an editorial empire seemed, at that moment, like the shy boy who asked permission to play in her backyard. "I'd like that," she replied sincerely. "But let's take it slow, okay? 15 years is a lot of time to recover all at once." "Slowly," he agreed, "as friends." While they walked back to the bookstore, Isabella felt something settle in her chest. It wasn't complete forgiveness, nor forgetting, but maybe it was the beginning of something new, a bridge over the abyss that the years had created. That afternoon, she worked with more lightness, organizing the shelves with a small smile on her lips. Mrs. Martha noticed the change. "Seems like lunch did you good," commented the manager with a mischievous look. "It was enlightening," Isabella replied diplomatically. "Mr. Cooper is a good man. He has some demons to resolve, anyone can see that, but he has a good heart." Isabella looked at her with curiosity. "Do you know him well?" "Well enough to. I know he didn't buy this bookstore by chance. He could have closed it like he did with other unprofitable branches, but he didn't. Said bookstores are too important for the community." This information echoed in Isabella's mind during the rest of the afternoon. When Tyler reappeared at the end of the day to check the closing, she was curious. "Why didn't you close the bookstore?" she asked directly. He stopped browsing the sales report and looked at her. "Who said I thought about closing?" "Mrs. Martha mentioned that other branches were closed." Tyler sighed, putting away the report. "Because books aren't just merchandise, Bella. They're portals. And a community without portals is a condemned community." "That's very poetic for a businessman." "Maybe the frustrated writer still exists in here," he said, touching his chest. "Besides, this particular bookstore reminds me why I started loving books." "Why?" "Because of a little girl with brown hair who told me stories under an oak tree and made the characters come alive just with her voice." Isabella's heart jumped. She remembered those afternoons when she invented amazing adventures and Tyler listened with his eyes shining with fascination. "You remember that?" "I remember everything, Bella. Every story, every laugh, every moment." He looked at her intensely. "Do you have any idea how much those memories sustained me during the most difficult years?" Before she could answer, Mrs. Martha appeared, carrying her purse. "Ready, children, I'm leaving. Isabella, don't forget to lock everything. Mr. Cooper, have a good night." When they were alone in the bookstore, with only the soft lighting of the shelves on, the atmosphere became more intimate. Tyler approached the American literature section, where Isabella was organizing the last books of the day. "Can I ask you a question?" he said. "Of course." Do you still believe in those things about birth months? The archetypes? Isabella stopped what she was doing. Why do you want to know? Because I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about November being the month of alchemists, those who transform pain into strength. And do you think that applies to you? I don't know. I have a lot of pain, but I don't know if I managed to transform it into something useful. Isabella turned to him, leaning against the shelf. Tyler, you came back to the US after 15 years, took on responsibilities you didn't want. You're trying to rebuild a life on top of the rubble of lies. If that's not alchemy, I don't know what is. But I don't feel strong. I feel lost. Strength isn't the absence of pain. It's the ability to keep feeling pain and still choose love, hope, construction instead of destruction. Tyler was silent for a long moment, absorbing her words. And you? He asked finally. Do you still consider yourself a soul healer? I don't know. Since I stopped teaching, I feel like I've lost my purpose. Maybe you just need to find other souls to heal. They looked at each other, and Isabella felt an electric current pass between them. It was no longer the innocent intimacy of childhood, but something deeper, more dangerous. I should go, she murmured. Grandma Rose is waiting. Of course, I'll lock everything here. As Isabella grabbed her purse and headed to the door, Tyler called her. Bella? Yes? Thank you. For today. For letting me explain. Thank you. For coming back. On the street, walking toward the bus stop, Isabella felt her heart racing. There was something happening between them, something that went beyond recovered friendship. But she was afraid. Afraid of getting hurt again, afraid of giving herself to someone who had already disappeared from her life once. At home, while having dinner of the crab cakes that Grandma Rose had prepared, she told her grandmother about the lunch. He's a wounded man, Grandma. He has deep scars. And you, my daughter? Don't you have them? Me? Child, you spent 15 years blaming yourself for someone leaving. That leaves marks too. Isabella stopped eating, considering her grandmother's words. Maybe you both need to heal together, continued Grandma Rose. Sometimes we can only see our own wounds when we look into the eyes of someone who carries similar pain. That night, Isabella wrote in her diary, March 17th, I had lunch with Tyler today. I discovered that he carries guilt that isn't his, just as I carried guilt that wasn't mine for 15 years. Maybe Grandma is right. Maybe healing comes from encounter, not isolation. March and November, healers and alchemists. Could we together transmute this old pain into something new? Do I have the courage to try? She closed the diary and looked out the window. Outside, Miami slept under a starry sky. And for the first time in a long time, Isabella allowed herself to dream of possibilities instead of just lamenting losses. And you, what do you think? Do you believe that some people enter our lives exactly when we need to heal old wounds? Leave your comments telling what city you're following this story from, and leave a like if you believe in healing reunions. The following days created a delicate routine between Isabella and Tyler. He appeared at the bookstore almost daily, always with a professional excuse, checking inventory, analyzing reports, getting to know customer profiles. But she noticed he was looking for reasons to stay. They talked about books between customers, exchanged glances when a customer made a funny comment, and slowly the old familiarity began to rebuild on adult foundations. But there were new tensions too. The way he watched her when she wasn't looking, the way she became hyper-conscious of her own appearance when she knew he was coming. On Thursday of the second week, Isabella was organizing an exhibition of Southern literature books when she found a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird with notes in the margins. When she browsed through it, she recognized Tyler's handwriting. "Is this book yours?" she asked when he appeared in the section. Tyler looked at the copy in her hands and blushed slightly. Yes, I forgot it here yesterday. You made many notes." She read one aloud. "You never really understand a person until you walk in his shoes. As Bella always said that books are portals to infinite universes. Do you remember saying that?" Not exactly like that, but yes, I always believed that. Literature expands our capacity to exist, Tyler approached, getting close enough for her to smell his masculine cologne. You marked my way of seeing the world, Bella. More than you imagine. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of an elegant woman of about 50, platinum blonde hair tied in an impeccable bun, wearing a beige suit and high heels. She looked around the bookstore with an expression of slight disdain before locating Tyler. "Tyler, darling, I finally found you," she said, approaching with determined steps. Isabella felt Tyler stiffen beside her. His jaw contracted, and he assumed a defensive posture. "Mother, what are you doing here?" "Mother." Isabella felt her stomach tighten. That was Helena Cooper, the woman who had torn Tyler from her life 15 years ago. "I came to see you, of course. You haven't answered my calls for 2 weeks." Helena noticed Isabella for the first time, and her cold blue eyes analyzed her from head to toe. "And you are?" "Isabella." "Martinez," she replied, extending her hand politely. "I work here." Helena shook her hand briefly, without warmth. "Pleasure. Tyler, we need to talk. In private." "There's nothing you need to tell me that can't be said here," Tyler replied coldly. "Tyler, please. It's about business." Isabella noticed the tension growing and stepped back. "I'll check the inventory in the warehouse." "You don't need to leave," Tyler said quickly, but she was already walking away. "It's okay. Excuse me." From the warehouse, Isabella could hear raised voices, although she couldn't distinguish the words. The argument lasted about 15 minutes before she heard the sound of high heels walking away quickly and the bookstore door slamming hard. When she returned to the store, she found Tyler sitting in one of the reading area armchairs, his head in his hands. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Far from it. He raised his face, and she saw a mixture of anger and exhaustion in his eyes. "My mother has an incredible ability to ruin any moment of peace, I find." "What did she want?" Tyler hesitated. "It's complicated. I have time." He looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing how much he should reveal. "She wants me to sell the company." "Sell? Why?" "Because she never got over the shame of what my father did. She thinks the Cooper name is tainted, that it would be better to liquidate everything and start over somewhere else, with another identity." Isabella sat in the armchair, next to him. "And you? What do you want?" "I don't know what I want anymore," he said bitterly. "For 15 years, she controlled my life with the excuse of protecting me. Now that I'm an adult, she still tries to do it. But you don't have to do what she wants. It's not that simple. She's a minority partner in the company, but she has legal rights. She can make my life hell if she wants to." "Tyler, can I ask you a direct question?" "Of course. Why did you really come back to the US? Was it just because of the company?" Tyler was silent for so long that Isabella thought he wasn't going to answer. "No," he said finally. "I came back because I was tired of living the life that others chose for me. In England, I was the son of the Brazilian who disappeared, the boy who had no roots. Here, at least, I have real memories." "What kind of memories?" He looked at her intensely. "You know what kind of memories." Isabella's heart accelerated. There was something in the way he looked at her that made her stomach contract in a way she hadn't felt in years. "Tyler, Bella, I need to tell you something about the day I left." "What about it?" "I tried to say goodbye to you. I snuck out of the house at dawn before we left for the airport and went to your house." Isabella looked at him with wide eyes. "What?" "I threw pebbles at your window, but you didn't wake up. I stayed down there for an hour, trying to gather courage to knock on the door and wake Grandma Rose. But it was too early, and I was afraid of scaring you." "My God, Tyler. I wrote a letter, a huge letter explaining everything, saying I was going to come back as soon as I could, asking you to wait for me." His voice became hoarse. "I asked Mrs. Rosa from the courthouse to deliver it to you." Isabella felt the world spin. "What letter?" "I never received any letter." Tyler looked at her with incredulity. "What do you mean you never received it?" "Tyler, I swear on my life, I never received any letter." They looked at each other in shocked silence for a long moment. "Mrs. Rosa," Tyler murmured. She must have thought it was better not to deliver it, or my mother found out and— What did you write in the letter? Everything. That you were my best friend, that I was going to miss you every day, that I would come back to find you when I grew up. That— He stopped, blushed. That I liked you in a special way. Isabella felt tears burn her eyes. 15 years, Tyler. 15. Years I thought you had forgotten me easily. Forget you? Bella, I could never forget you. You were the only real thing in my childhood. Without thinking, Isabella extended her hand and touched his face. Tyler closed his eyes and leaned into her palm. All these lost years, she whispered. Not lost, just postponed. When he opened his eyes, there was an intensity in them that made Isabella feel like she was being seen for the first time. Slowly, he covered her hand with his. Bella, I know. This is complicated. I know you have every right to hate me. But I never stopped feeling— What? That you're the only person in the world who really knows me. The moment was interrupted by the entrance of a group of college students looking for books for a literature assignment. Isabella quickly withdrew her hand and got up to serve them, but her legs were shaky. When the students left, Tyler was still in the armchair, watching her with an indecipherable expression. I should go, he said. It's almost closing time. Tyler, about what we talked about. You don't need to say anything now. I know it's a lot all at once. When he approached the door, Isabella called him. The letter. Do you remember what else you wrote? He turned, a sad smile on his lips. That you had the most beautiful eyes in the world, and that waiting for you to grow up would be the easiest and hardest thing I would do in my life. And he left, leaving Isabella with her heart racing and a growing certainty that it was no longer just friendship that was being reborn between them. That night at home, she couldn't concentrate on anything. Grandma Rose noticed her agitation during dinner. Girl, you've been stirring that soup for 10 minutes without eating a spoonful. What happened? Isabella told about Tyler's mother's visit, about the letter she never received, about his confession. Oh, my granddaughter, sighed Grandma Rose. Mrs. Rosa was always very gossipy. I bet she read the letter and thought it was better not to get involved. 15 years, Grandma. 15 years of misunderstanding. But now you know the truth. The question is, what are you going to do with it? I don't know. He's my boss, and he has all these complications with his family. Isabella, listen to me carefully. Grandma Rose took her granddaughter's hands. I saw how that boy looked at you when you were children. And today, when he came here to pick you up for lunch, I saw the same thing in his eyes, only now it's from man to woman. Grandma, true love doesn't appear twice in life, daughter. If it appeared again, it's because there's a reason. That night, Isabella wrote in her diary, March 25th. I discovered today that Tyler tried to say goodbye to me, that he wrote a letter that never reached my hands. 15 years of hurt based on a misunderstanding. And now I feel something growing between us that's scary and wonderful at the same time. He looks at me in a way that makes my heart forget how to beat. But I'm afraid of giving myself and him disappearing again, afraid that the complications in his life are too big. March, the month of soul healers. Maybe it's time to start healing my own soul. Do you believe that some misunderstandings are actually protections from destiny, which waits for the right moment to reveal the truth? What would you do in Isabella's place? Comment what city you're following from, and leave a like if you're rooting for this. Love! Saturday dawned grey in Miami, with heavy clouds promising rain. Isabella had woken up with a strange feeling, as if something important was about to happen. She arrived at the bookstore earlier than usual, taking advantage of reorganizing the new releases section. Tyler appeared at exactly 9 o'clock, earlier than his custom, carrying 2 coffee cups and a determined expression. Good morning, he said, extending one of the cups to her. I thought you'd like some coffee from the corner cafe. Thank you. Isabella accepted the coffee, noticing that their hands touched briefly at the moment of exchange. Are you okay? You seem different today. I am. Different, I mean. Tyler ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she already recognized as a sign of nervousness. "Bella, we need to talk. Really. Without interruptions, without customers, without my mother showing up." "About what?" "About us. About what's happening between us." Isabella's heart raced. "Tyler, please, let me talk first." He looked around the empty bookstore. "Mrs. Martha doesn't come on Saturdays, right? Can we lock the door for a few minutes?" Isabella hesitated, but something in the urgency of his voice made her agree. She turned the sign to "closed" and locked the door. When she turned around, Tyler was standing in the middle of the store, his hands in his pockets, suddenly looking young and vulnerable. "I couldn't sleep properly since yesterday," he began. "Since I told you about the letter, because I realized I didn't say the most important thing." "What thing?" "That I never stopped loving you." The words hung in the air between them like a confession that changed everything. Isabella felt the coffee tremble in her hands. "Tyler, we were children. I know. And I know that what I felt as a child was different from what I feel now. But Bella," he took a step toward her, "when I saw you that first afternoon here in the bookstore, it wasn't just nostalgia. It was recognition, like a part of me that had been asleep for 15 years had awakened." Isabella put the coffee on the counter because she couldn't stop shaking. "It's not fair, Tyler." "What's not fair?" "You appearing in my life after 15 years and saying these things. I built a life without you. I learned to live without you. And I learned to exist without you," he replied, approaching more. "But existing isn't living, Bella. I've only been truly alive during 2 periods of my life. When I was a child and played with you in Grandma Rose's backyard, and in the last few weeks here in this bookstore." "Tyler, stop." Isabella raised her hand, but her voice came out without conviction. "You're my boss. I work for you. This complicates everything. Then I'll fire you." "What?" "You're fired. There. Now I'm not your boss anymore." Despite all the tension, Isabella laughed. "You can't fire me just because you want to kiss me." "Who said I want to kiss you?" They looked at each other, and the silence filled with an almost tangible electricity. "Don't you?" she asked quietly. "Of course I do," he replied, his voice hoarse. "I've wanted to since the first moment I saw you here. But I want more than that, Bella. I want to get to know you again. I want to know who you've become. I want to share with you the things I've learned, the places I've known, the dreams I still have. And if it doesn't work out, and if we discover we're 2 different people now, and if it works out, and if we discover we were made for each other from the beginning." Isabella felt tears coming. "I'm scared, Tyler." "Of what?" "Of falling in love with you and you leaving again." Tyler extended his hands to her. "Bella, look at me." Reluctantly, she put her hands in his. "I'm not leaving. Not again. Not voluntarily." He squeezed her hands. "The only way I'd leave your life now is if you send me away." "How can you be sure?" "Because I spent 15 years looking for a place where I belonged. And now I discovered that place isn't geographical. It's you. It's always been you." Isabella felt her last defenses crumble. "Tyler, give me a chance. Give us a chance." Before she could answer, someone knocked insistently on the bookstore door. They separated quickly, and Isabella went to the door to see who it was. Helena Cooper was outside with a furious expression on her face, accompanied by a man in a suit that Isabella didn't know. "Shit," Tyler murmured behind her. "Who's the man?" "With her. Lawyer, probably." Tyler sighed. "You'll have to open it, Bella. She won't leave." Isabella unlocked the door reluctantly. Helena entered like a hurricane, followed by the man in the suit. "Tyler, I need to talk to you immediately," said Helena, shooting an icy look at Isabella. "In private." "No," Tyler replied firmly. "Whatever you have to say can be said in front of Isabella. This is about family business, Tyler. She has nothing to do with it. She has everything to do with me. And you're going to have to accept that." Helena looked between the two with an expression of growing incredulity. "Don't tell me you're—" "Oh, Tyler, please tell me you're not doing this." "Doing what?" "Getting involved with her." Helena spoke as if Isabella were a contagious disease. And if I am? Tyler asked dangerously. Then you're more foolish than I thought. Helena turned to Isabella. Dear, you seem like a sensible girl. Surely you understand this is an impossible situation. With all due respect, Mrs. Cooper, Isabella replied with the firmest voice she could manage, I don't understand any of this. Helena laughed without humor. Don't you? Then let me clarify some things for you. She opened her purse and took out a folder of documents. Dr. Mendez, please explain to the lady the legal situation. The man in the suit cleared his throat. Mrs. Martinez, my name is Joaquin Mendez. I've been the Cooper family lawyer for over 20 years. Mrs. Cooper asked me to inform you that any relationship between you and Mr. Tyler Cooper could be considered inappropriate due to the difference in socio-economic positions and— Enough! Tyler exploded. Mother, this is ridiculous. And you, Dr. Mendez, are being paid to talk nonsense. Tyler, you don't understand, Helena continued. This girl, she comes from a simple family without resources. How can you be sure she's not interested only in your money? Because I've known her for 15 years. You knew, child 15 years ago. People change, Tyler, especially when they see an opportunity to improve their lives. Isabella felt like she had been slapped in the face. Mrs. Cooper, Let me finish, dear. Helena approached her with a false smile. I don't blame you. Any girl in your position would do the same, but you need to understand that my son has responsibilities, family and social obligations that you wouldn't be able to meet. Mother, stop this now, Tyler said, his voice dangerously low. And there's one more thing you both need to know, Helena continued, ignoring her son. Dr. Mendez, show them the documents. The lawyer opened the folder and took out some papers. Mr. Tyler, as you know, your mother owns 30% of the company's shares. She has the legal right to demand changes in administration if she considers that your decisions are compromising the business. What kind of changes? Tyler asked. But Isabella could see he already knew the answer. Mandatory sale. If she can prove that you're making decisions based on personal impulses instead of professional criteria, she can force the liquidation of the company. Isabella felt the ground disappear from under her feet. What does this mean? Helena smiled triumphantly. It means, dear, that if you continue getting involved with my son, it could destroy everything the family worked for. This is blackmail, Tyler said, his voice trembling with rage. This is protection, Helena replied. Protection against another mistake that will cost everyone dearly. Isabella looked between mother and son, seeing the pain in Tyler's eyes and the cold determination in Helena's. She felt like an intruder in a family war she didn't fully understand. I need to leave, she said suddenly. Bella, no. Tyler extended his hand to her. No, Tyler, your mother is right about one thing. This is family business, and I'm not part of your family. Very sensible, Helena murmured. Isabella grabbed her purse and headed to the door. I'll take a walk. You resolve this. Isabella, please. But she had already left, leaving Tyler alone with his mother and the lawyer. Isabella walked aimlessly through the streets of Miami, tears blurring her vision. Helena's threat echoed in her mind. Would she really be capable of destroying the company just to separate Tyler from her? And if so, how could they have any future together? She found herself in Bayfront Park, sitting on a bench under a blooming jacaranda tree. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was running from a confrontation on a grey morning, exactly as she had done as a child whenever something scared her too much. Her phone rang. It was Tyler. Bella, where are you? At the park. I need to think. Don't do this. Don't abandon me because of her. Tyler, you heard what the lawyer said. She can destroy everything. And do you think I care about that? Isabella closed her eyes. You should care. It's your legacy, your family. My legacy is what I build from now on, and my family is whoever I choose it to be. It's not that simple. Why can't it be? She couldn't answer, because a part of her desperately wanted to believe it could be that simple. Give me half an hour, he continued. I'll send my mother away and then come there. Don't make any decisions until we talk properly. 40 minutes later, Tyler appeared in the park, still wearing the same clothes from the morning, but with disheveled hair and an exhausted expression. He sat beside her on the bench without saying anything for a few minutes. "How was it?" Isabella finally asked. "Horrible. She said things I won't repeat because you don't deserve to hear them. About me? About us. About our class difference. About you being a gold digger. About me making the same mistakes as my father." Isabella felt a stab in her chest. Maybe she's not completely wrong. "What do you mean?" "About the differences between us. Tyler, I work in a bookstore. I live in a rented apartment with my grandmother. You own a publishing empire. So what? So what that maybe this really complicates things?" Tyler turned to her on the bench. "Bella, are you serious? Do you really think I care about that?" "You should care. Other people will think the same as your mother." "What other people? Your partners? Your clients? Your extended family? Since when do you care about the opinion of people who don't even know you?" The question caught her by surprise. "Since it affects the man you what? The man I'm starting to love," she completed quietly. Tyler closed his eyes for a moment. "Then you feel the same as I do." "I do, and that's why I'm scared. Because if your mother can destroy your company because of us, then maybe we should..." "Should what? Give up? Pretend we don't feel anything?" "Maybe." Tyler got up from the bench and started pacing back and forth in front of her. "Bella, I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone." "What?" "In England, I tried to fall in love with other people. I dated suitable girls from society with the right pedigree, beautiful, intelligent women from good families." Isabella felt a tightness in her heart. And I never felt with any of them even a tenth of what I felt yesterday when you touched my face." He stopped walking and looked at her. "Do you think I'm going to give up the only person who makes me feel alive because of money? But if she really manages to force the sale, then I'll build something else. I'll open a small publishing house, go back to writing, work in a bookstore. I don't care, Bella. Money is worth nothing if I don't have someone to share dreams with." "You're being too romantic. Reality is more complicated. Reality is that I love you," he said, approaching the bench again, "and that you love me too. Everything else is just noise." Isabella felt tears coming back. "And if it doesn't work out, and if we discover we're incompatible, and if it works out, and if we discover we waited 15 years to find our soulmate." "Tyler, Bella, do you remember that afternoon when we were 10 and 12, and you invented that story about two little birds that got lost in a storm?" She nodded, surprised that he remembered something so specific. In the story, they spent years flying in circles, looking for each other, until one day they met on the same branch where they had first met. "I remember. You said the branch was special because it was there that they could sing in harmony. Alone, their voices were beautiful, but together they created music that could heal broken hearts." Isabella felt her heart accelerate. And maybe this bookstore is our branch, Bella. Maybe we flew in circles for 15 years to discover that our music can still heal broken hearts, starting with our own. She looked at him, seeing not just the man he had become, but also echoes of the boy she had loved with all. The purity of an 8-year-old child. "What are you proposing?" "That we try, really, without fear, without rush, but without hiding either." He extended his hand to her. "That you trust me when I say I'll fight for us, regardless of what my mother or anyone else does." Isabella looked at the extended hand. It was an elegant hand, but one that showed signs of work, of responsibility, a hand that had written love letters never delivered, and that now offered itself to rebuild an interrupted story. "And the company, if she really manages to force the sale? Then we start from scratch, together. It wouldn't be the first time someone rebuilt a life for love." Slowly, Isabella put her hand in his. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." When their hands touched, she felt as if all the pieces of a puzzle she didn't even know she was putting together finally fit. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's try." "Let's try," he repeated, and there was so much relief and happiness in his voice, that she smiled for the first time that difficult day. That afternoon, they returned to the bookstore together. They worked side by side, organizing shelves, helping customers, talking about books and dreams. And for the first time in 15 years, both Isabella and Tyler felt they were exactly where they should be. But neither knew that Helena Cooper was just beginning her campaign to separate them, and that the real test of their love was yet to come. That night, Isabella wrote in her diary, April 2nd, "Today I made the scariest and most certain decision of my life. I told Tyler we're going to try, that I'm going to trust him and what we feel for each other. His mother threatened to destroy everything, but he said he doesn't care, that he loves me more than money, more than other people's approval. Is it possible? Can love really overcome all obstacles? March is over, and April has arrived, the month of rebirths. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe our love story is just beginning." 3 weeks had passed since that turbulent morning in the park, and a new routine had established itself in Isabella and Tyler's lives. They had coffee together before the bookstore opened, lunched when the movement allowed, and sometimes he took her home at the end of the day, always stopping to talk with Grandma Rose, who received him as if he had never left their lives. Helena's threat hung over them like a dark cloud, but so far it hadn't materialized into concrete actions. Tyler had hired his own lawyers to review the partnership contracts while trying to keep the business running normally. On a rainy Thursday in April, Isabella was organizing a special window display of literature by Southern authors when she received an unexpected call. "Hello, Isabella? This is Marina Fonseca, principal of Lincoln Elementary School in the Wynwood neighborhood. I received your file from a colleague and would like to talk about a vacancy for a literature teacher." Isabella's heart raced. A vacancy, but I thought there were no vacancies in public schools. We had an unexpected situation. A teacher had to take leave for health reasons, and we urgently need someone. Your background and experience caught our attention. Could you come here this afternoon to talk? Isabella looked around the bookstore, then at Tyler, who was organizing books on a nearby shelf. "Yes, of course. What time?" 3 o'clock. "I have your address here." When she hung up, Isabella stood still for a moment, processing the information. An opportunity to return to teaching, to do what she really loved. "Everything okay?" Tyler asked, noticing her expression. It was a school. They have a vacancy for a literature teacher." Tyler's face lit up. "Bella, that's fantastic. Are you going to do the interview?" "I am, but—" She hesitated. "And the bookstore?" "What about the bookstore?" "Tyler, if I get the job, I won't be able to work here anymore, and how will we—" "See each other." Tyler dropped the books he was holding and approached her. "Bella, do you really think I wouldn't support you in realizing your dream because of that? It's not that. It's that you're afraid that if we don't work together, we'll drift apart." She nodded, feeling silly for being so afraid. "Love," he said quietly, using the endearment for the first time. "If our relationship only works because we work in the same place, then it's not a real relationship." "You're right," she sighed. "It's just that I'm still getting used to all this. It's going to work out. And you know why? Why? Because I'll pick you up at school every day if necessary. Because we'll have dinner together, travel on weekends, build a real life." He held her face between his hands. "Because I love you regardless of where you work." The interview at Lincoln Elementary School was better than Isabella expected. Principal Marina was a woman in her 40s, grey hair and a welcoming smile, who clearly loved her work. "Isabella, I read your references from the school in Austin. The reports about your work with students are impressive. Thank you. Teaching has always been my passion." "Good to hear that. Here we work with an underserved community, but the students are hungry for knowledge. We need someone who believes in their potential. I believe that literature can transform lives, open worlds, teach empathy." Marina smiled. "Perfect. The job is yours if you want it. Can you start Monday?" On the way back, Isabella called Tyler, barely able to contain her emotion. "I got it. I got the job." I knew you would, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Let's celebrate. Special dinner tonight? Where? Leave it to me. I'll pick you up at 7. When Tyler came to pick her up that night, Isabella barely recognized the place he took her to. It was a small, cozy restaurant in Coral Gables with intimate tables and lit candles. How did you discover this place? She asked, impressed with the romantic atmosphere. I researched special restaurants in Miami. I wanted our first official celebration to be unforgettable. They ordered stone crab with rice and beans and collard greens, accompanied by a caipirinha made with passion fruit. During dinner, they talked about Isabella's plans for classes, about the books she wanted to work with students, about how good it was to have a purpose again. Tyler, can I ask you a question? She said when they finished eating. Always. Why did you stop writing, really? He was silent for a moment, playing with his napkin. Because after I discovered about my father, it seemed like I didn't even know my own story. How could I invent stories if I couldn't understand even mine? And now, after everything we've talked about, after us, now, he looked at her intensely. Now I feel like maybe I've found a story worth telling. What story? Ours. The reunion. The overcoming. The love that survived 15 years of separation. Isabella felt her heart accelerate. Would you write about us? I would write about how sometimes life separates us from the right people at the wrong time, only to reunite us with them at the right time. That would be a beautiful book. It would be, especially if it had a happy ending. And will it? Tyler extended his hand across the table and intertwined his fingers with hers. That depends on us. When they left the restaurant, the night was starry. Tyler suggested a walk along Miami Beach, and they walked slowly hand in hand, talking about dreams and plans. Bella, can I tell you a secret? He said when they stopped on a pier over the ocean. Always. When I was a child, I used to make a wish every time I saw the first star of the night. What wish? That you would be my best friend forever. Isabella smiled. And now? What wish would you make? Tyler looked at the starry sky, then at her. That you'd be my best friend, my companion, my love, forever. Tyler. Bella, I know it's early. I know we're still getting to know each other again, but I have absolute certainty about one thing. What thing? That I want to build a life with you. I don't know how it will be. I don't know where we'll live, what obstacles we'll face, but I know I want to face all of this by your side. Tears came to Isabella's eyes. I want that too. Even knowing my mother will keep trying to separate us, even knowing that, even knowing I might lose the company and we'd have to start from scratch. Tyler, you don't understand one thing. She turned to him completely. I loved you when you were a boy who had nothing but dreams. Why wouldn't I love you now, with or without money? Because you grew up, changed. I changed, yes, but my heart recognizes yours. It always has. Tyler pulled her closer, and this time there were no interruptions, no hesitation. When their lips met, it was as if 15 years of longing dissolved in one kiss. Gentle at first, then more intense, full of promises and possibilities. When they separated, both were breathless. It was worth waiting 15 years for this, he murmured against her lips. It was, she agreed, worth every day. 2 weeks later, Isabella was in her new classroom, teaching The Great Gatsby to a third-year class. Her eyes sparkled as she explained F. Scott Fitzgerald's social criticisms, and the students listened to her fascinated. During recess, she received a message from Tyler. How's the first day at the new school going? Incredible, she replied. I feel like I'm where I should be. I'll still pick you up at 5. Of course, I love you. I love you too. When Tyler appeared at the school door that afternoon, some students made approving comments about the teacher's boyfriend. Isabella blushed but didn't deny it. For the first time in a long time, she felt complete. On the way home, Tyler had a surprise. Bella, I have news. Good or bad? Good. My lawyers found a loophole in the partnership contract. My mother can't force the sale of the company just for disagreeing with my personal choices. She would need to prove I'm causing real financial damage. And are you? On the contrary, sales have increased 20% since you started working at the bookstore. Your way of recommending books brought many new customers. Isabella laughed. So your mother can't do anything? For now, no. And that gives us time to... To what? To make you a proposal. Isabella looked at him curiously as he parked in front of her building. What kind of proposal? Come with me, he said, taking a folder from the back seat. They went up to the apartment, where Grandma Rose received them with kisses and a chicken pot pie coming out of the oven. How good that you arrived. The pie is hot. Grandma Rose, said Tyler, would you mind if I steal Bella for a few minutes? I want to show her something. Of course. My dear, I'll prepare some coffee. Tyler took Isabella to the small balcony of the apartment, where you could see the lights of Miami starting to turn on. Tyler, you're making me nervous. It's nothing big, he said, opening the folder. It's just a project. He took out some papers and architectural plans. Remember I said I wanted to write again? Yes. Well, I had an idea. What if I opened a small publishing house specialized in new authors, quality books, stories that deserve to be told? Isabella examined the papers. These are blueprints of a building. A small building downtown. Ground floor for bookstore and cafe. First floor for publishing house. Second floor for... He hesitated. For what? For an apartment. For us. Isabella's heart stopped. Tyler, I know it's too fast. But Bella, I don't want to wait another 15 years to start our life together. I want to wake up with you every day. I want the first thing I see to be your face. I want to build something. That's really ours. And your current company? I'll sell my share to my mother. She always wanted total control anyway. With the money, I can start from scratch, do things my way. But it's a huge risk. The biggest risk is letting life pass without risking what we believe in. He held her hands. Bella, marry me. What? Marry me. Not now, not tomorrow, when you feel it's time. But marry me. Be my partner in life, in business, in dreams. Isabella looked at the papers, then at him, then at the city that stretched before them. She saw a possible life there, a life she had dreamed of without even knowing she dreamed it. Tyler, You don't need to answer now, he said quickly. Think carefully. Talk to Grandma Rose. Just don't say no out of fear, okay? That night after Tyler left, Isabella sat in the kitchen with her grandmother, sharing chicken pot pie and confidences. He asked you to marry him, asked Grandma Rose. More or less. He asked me to marry him when I feel ready. And you, do you want to marry him? I do, very much. But Grandma, what if it goes wrong? What if the differences between us are too big? What if... My granddaughter, the elderly woman interrupted, covering Isabella's hand with hers. Do you remember what I told you when you were little about butterflies? That they need to struggle to get out of the cocoon, otherwise they can't fly. Exactly. True love also needs struggle, risk, courage. If it's too easy, it's not true love. But what if I'm not strong enough? You're the girl who created stories to heal a lost little boy's loneliness. You're the young woman who left the countryside to start over in a big city. You're the teacher who awakens passion for books in teenagers who never cared about anything. Grandma Rose smiled. My daughter, you're much stronger than you imagine. That night, Isabella wrote in her diary, April 30th. Tyler asked me to marry him today. Not exactly like that, but that's what he did. He wants us to build a life together, a publishing house, a home. I'm scared, but it's a good fear, the fear of someone who's about to fly. April ends tomorrow, the month of rebirths, and I feel like I'm really being reborn. No longer the girl who waits for life to happen, but the woman who takes control of her own destiny. And my destiny has a name, Tyler. It's always been Tyler. On May 1st, Isabella woke up with crystal-clear certainty in her heart. She called Tyler before even having breakfast. Hello? Yes. Bella? Yes, what? Yes. I accept. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. The silence on the other end of the line lasted so many seconds that she thought the call had dropped. Tyler, I'm here. I'm just trying to believe it's real. It's real. We're real. I love you so much, Isabella. I love you too. And for the first time in 15 years, the future was no longer a scary unknown, but an adventure waiting to be lived together. 5 years later, the rain gently beat against the windows of New Chapter Publishing on a grey March afternoon, creating a soft symphony that mixed with the sound of typewriter keys in the second-floor office. Isabella smiled, hearing the familiar noise. Tyler was working on his 4th novel, a family saga set in rural Texas that had already attracted interest from publishers in New York and Los Angeles. She herself was proofreading the new book that would come out next month, a collection of chronicles written by her students at Lincoln Elementary School. The Voices of Tomorrow project had become a success, and this would be the 3rd edition published by the publishing house. "Mummy, can I help?" asked a sweet little voice behind her. Isabella turned to find Lara, her 3-year-old daughter, with blue eyes identical to Tyler's and curly brown hair like hers, holding a coloured pencil and a small notebook. "Of course, my love. You can draw while Mummy works." Lara settled on the office floor, tongue out in maximum concentration as she drew what she called flying books, her interpretation of the colourful covers scattered around the publishing house. The little girl had been born 2 years after the wedding, on a sunny September morning that Isabella would never forget. Tyler had fainted in the delivery room, and she laughed every time she remembered the nurse saying, "The new father is always the one who gives the most trouble." "How are my most beautiful girls?" asked Tyler, appearing in the office doorway with dishevelled hair and an ink stain on his face, a sign that he had been immersed in writing. "Daddy!" Lara ran to him, and he picked her up and spun her in the air, drawing delighted laughter from the girl. "And how's the book going?" asked Isabella, getting up to clean the ink stain from her husband's face with her finger. "I finished the most difficult chapter, the one about the protagonist's reunion with his hometown." Tyler pulled her into a hug, Lara still in his arms. "Funny how fiction imitates life, right? Or life imitates fiction. I still haven't decided." "Mummy, Daddy, can I show my drawing?" interrupted Lara. "Of course, Princess." Lara proudly showed a drawing with childish strokes, but surprisingly detailed for her age. There was a house shaped like a book, 2 figures holding hands, clearly her parents, and a short little lady who could only be Grandma Rose. "It's our family," she announced. "And look, there's Grandma Rose." "Making cake. It's beautiful, my love," said Isabella, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Should we show Grandma when she arrives?" "Is she coming today?" "Yes. She's going to have dinner with us and sleep here." Lara clapped her hands excitedly. Grandma Rose, now 77 years old, had moved permanently to Miami after her granddaughter's birth, occupying a small apartment 2 blocks from the publishing house. She said she couldn't miss any moment of her granddaughter of the hearts. Childhood. The phone rang, interrupting the family moment. Tyler answered, still with Lara in his arms. "New Chapter Publishing, good afternoon." "Oh, Mrs. Marina, how are you?" "What? Are you sure? This is incredible. Yes, we can talk tomorrow morning. Thank you." Isabella looked at him curiously as he hung up with an expression of disbelief. "What was it?" "It was Principal Marina from your school. It seems the Department of Education wants to turn the Voices of Tomorrow project into a national program." "What do you mean?" "They want to implement the model in public schools across the country, partnerships between schools and local publishers to publish student work." Isabella felt her heart accelerate. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. They saw the numbers. Increase in school attendance, improvement in English grades, growth in student self-esteem. They want you as an educational consultant for the project." "My God," murmured Isabella, letting herself fall into the chair. "Mummy's okay?" asked Lara, worried. "Mummy's more than okay, Princess. Mummy's fulfilled." That night, after Lara slept and Grandma Rose retired to her permanent guest room, Isabella and Tyler sat on the apartment balcony, watching the city lights and talking about the changes that were coming. "Do you realize what this means?" asked Tyler, serving 2 glasses of wine. "That I'll have to travel a lot. That our routine will change. That maybe I'll spend less time with Lara. No, he interrupted, pulling her closer on the small balcony sofa. It means your passion for teaching will touch thousands of children across the entire country, that you'll democratize access to literature in a way we never imagined. And you? How do you feel about it? Proud, completely proud. He kissed her temple. Remember when you said you had lost your purpose when the school closed? I remember. Maybe you hadn't lost it. Maybe you were just being prepared for a bigger purpose. Isabella snuggled against him, watching the stars that were beginning to appear in the sky. Tyler, can I tell you something I never told you? Always. Sometimes I'm still scared. Of what? That all this is too good to be true. The publishing house, our marriage, Lara, and now this project. I'm afraid of waking up and discovering it was all a dream. Tyler was silent for a moment, then got up and came back with something in his hands. What's that? She asked. Your first diary. The one you wrote when we were children. Isabella's eyes widened. How did you... Grandma Rose gave it to me on our wedding day. She said it was for me to understand that some dreams take time to come true, but they always do. He opened the diary to a page marked with a piece of paper. Listen to this. Dear Diary, today Tyler said that when he grows up, he wants to write books that make people smile. I said I want to teach children to love stories like I love them. He laughed and said that way we'll change the world together, one story at a time. Isabella felt tears burning her eyes. I didn't remember writing that. You were 8 years old. And look where we are now. Changing the world one story at a time, she murmured. Exactly. So it's not a dream, love. It's fulfilled destiny. 2 months later, Isabella was on the plane that would take her to the first meeting in Washington about the national project. Lara had stayed with Tyler and Grandma Rose, and she carried in her luggage a folder full of ideas and proposals. During the flight, she met a passenger who was reading one of the books published by New Chapter, precisely the first collection of Southern short stories that had sold out in 3 weeks 5 years ago. Excuse me, said Isabella, unable to contain her curiosity. How are you liking the book? The woman, about 40 years old, smiled. Wonderful. I bought it by chance at a bookstore in Orlando, but I was so moved that I already ordered others from the same publishing house. Do you know it? A little, Isabella replied, smiling. It's incredible how a small publishing house from Miami manages to publish such touching stories. Do you know if they accept manuscripts? My daughter writes beautiful poems. I'm sure they do, especially from young talents. The conversation continued throughout the flight, and Isabella discovered that the woman was a teacher at a rural school in central Florida. When they said goodbye at the airport, they exchanged contacts, and Isabella knew she had found another partner for the project that was being born. The meetings in Washington were even better than she expected. The enthusiasm of the educational managers was contagious, and in 3 days they had outlined a pilot plan that would begin in 5 different states. On the way home, Tyler and Lara were waiting for her at the airport with flowers and smiles. In the car, while Lara dozed in her car seat, Isabella told about the plans, the partnerships, the infinite possibilities that were opening up. And you know what moves me most, she said, holding Tyler's hand. What? It's thinking that maybe there are thousands of children across the country who are like we were. Dreamers, passionate about stories, but without opportunities. And now we'll be able to reach them. Our lost little birds, Tyler murmured. Exactly. And we'll teach all of them to find their special branch. 1 year later, the Voices of Tomorrow project was functioning in 200 schools across the country. New Chapter Publishing had expanded, occupying the entire building, with a team of 15 employees and partnerships in all regions of the country. Tyler had finished his second novel, which had been nominated for an important national literary prize. Helena, who now regularly visited her grandchildren and had learned to make apple pie with Grandma Rose, publicly prided herself on her son and daughter-in-law's successes. And Isabella was pregnant again. It's a boy, she announced one September morning, returning from the doctor's appointment with the ultrasound in hand. A boy, Tyler repeated, his eyes filling with tears. A boy, she confirmed, laughing at the expression of absolute joy on her husband's face. Lara's going to have a little brother, shouted Lara, who had recently learned the word. Yes, princess. What name will we give him? Asked Tyler. I was thinking, how about Gabriel? It means God's strength. Gabriel, you've repeated, trying out the sound. Gabriel Cooper Martinez. Did you like it? I loved it, just like I love you. That night, after Lara slept, they sat in the office, planning how to reorganize the space to accommodate another family member. Tyler, Isabella said suddenly. Yes? Remember when you said our story would be a beautiful book? I remember. I think I discovered how it ends. How? It doesn't end. It multiplies. In every child who discovers love for reading, in every young person who publishes their first text, in every school that transforms, our story spreads and becomes thousands of other stories. Tyler stopped writing and looked at her. You're right. The best love story isn't one that has a happy ending. It's one that teaches other people to believe that happy endings are possible. And will we teach that to Gabriel and Lara? We'll teach them that love is the most transformative force in the world, that it's worth waiting for the right person, that some reunions are destiny, and that when two people truly love each other, they don't just change their own lives, they change the world. 6 months later, Gabriel was born on a sunny March morning, the month of soul healers. He had his father's blue eyes and a tuft of his mother's brown hair, and cried exactly 3 times before calming down in Isabella's arms. He seems like he already knows he's home, said Grandma Rose, now 80 years old, but still lucid and affectionate as always. He really is, agreed Isabella. We all are. Lara, now 4 years old, watched her brother with fascination. Mommy, when he grows up, can I teach him to draw flying books? Of course, my love. And who knows if he won't invent stories to go with your drawings. Like Daddy does? Like Daddy does. That afternoon, while Gabriel slept and Lara played with Grandma Rose in the living room, Isabella and Tyler sat on the balcony watching the street movement below. The publishing house operated on the ground floor, and they could see customers entering and leaving, carrying books, carrying dreams. 5 years, Tyler said suddenly. 5 years since you appeared at the bookstore looking for books about symbolic psychology. Do you remember the first thing I thought when I saw you? What? That my life had just restarted. Isabella smiled. And you were right. And now? What do you think we would think if we could go back in time and talk to ourselves from that day? We'd tell ourselves not to be afraid, that the best was just beginning, and that true love isn't something from movies or romantic books. It's something for people brave enough to believe that some people are born to meet, even if it takes them 15 years to do it. Tyler took her hand, intertwining their fingers as they always did. Bella, yes? Thank you. For what? For waiting, for believing, for giving me a family, a life, a purpose. Thank you. For coming back, for insisting when I was scared, for turning my world into a better place. At that moment, as if he knew his parents were having a special moment, Gabriel woke up with a soft cry. Isabella went to get him, and when she returned, she settled on the balcony with the baby in her arms. Look, Gabriel, she said quietly, this is our city, our publishing house, our life, and one day you'll understand that all this began with a love story your parents told each other when they were children. Gabriel opened his little blue eyes and looked at her with that mysterious wisdom that babies seem to have. I think he understood, said Tyler, gently running his finger over his son's cheek. Of course he understood. He's the son of storytellers. And there, on that simple balcony, with Miami stretching before them and the future shining with infinite possibilities, Isabella knew with absolute certainty that she had found her place in the world. Not just a geographical place, but an existential place. A place where being who she was, teacher, mother, wife, dreamer, wasn't just enough, but was exactly what the world needed. March had arrived again, bringing the renewal it always brought. And for the first time in many years, Isabella felt no need to write in her diary about uncertainties or fears, because she had finally learned that the best stories aren't those that end with, "and they lived happily ever after." They're those that end with, "and they continued writing their happiness one day at a time, one choice at a time, one story at a time." And them, they became specialists in writing happiness. That night, Isabella wrote the last entry in her diary before starting a new notebook, dedicated no longer to uncertainties, but to conquered certainties. November 1st. Today we completed 6 months of marriage and 3 months of the publishing house. Tyler was right. November really is the month of alchemists. He transformed pain into strength, fear into courage, separation into reunion. And I learned that March isn't just the month of soul healers. It's the month of those who allow themselves to be healed too. Our story doesn't end here. Actually, it's just beginning, because we discovered that true love isn't one that never faces storms, but one that teaches two hearts to dance in the rain. And us, we're specialists in transforming storms into symphonies. She closed the old diary and opened the new one, writing on the first page, "For Tyler, my recovered past, my lived present, and my dreamed future. May our music heal broken hearts around the world, always starting with our own." From the next room, she heard Tyler typing on his old typewriter. He was finishing the novel about their reunion, which would be the publishing house's second book. The story of two little birds who learned that some branches are worth 15 years of waiting. And in Austin, in a small house that was now empty during the week but full of love on weekends, when the grandchildren of the heart came to visit, Grandma Rose smiled, looking at a wedding photo on the living room table. "I knew it," she murmured to herself, as she always knew that some love stories are bigger than time, stronger than distance, and more lasting than any obstacle. In the backyard, the oak tree where two children had discovered love still bore sweet fruit, and on Sunday afternoons, when Isabella and Tyler returned home, they could be seen there underneath, telling stories to the neighbors' children, perpetuating the magic of transforming words into worlds and broken hearts into whole hearts. Because some people aren't just made to love, they're made to teach the whole world how to love. And so we reach the end of Isabella and Tyler's journey. Dear readers who followed this story to the end, thank you so much for every moment you spent with us in Miami, in the pages of New Chapter Bookstore, and in the hearts of these two lovers who reunited after 15 years. If you made it this far, it's because you believe, just like me, that true love is worth any weight, overcomes any obstacle, and transforms any pain into strength. Now, I really want to know from you, what city did you follow this story from? Leave it in the comments. I love knowing where our readers are spread across the country. What touched your hearts most in this journey? Was it the reunion, the overcoming, the fight against prejudice? Do you believe in destined reunions? Have you experienced something similar? And don't forget, leave your like if the story moved you. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that warm the heart. Comment suggestions for future stories. What types of romances would you like to see? Thank you so much for being part of this journey. Until the next story, may it always be full of love, hope, and happy endings.